you're not going to hit every shot perfect. So, if you can get your short game and putting really, really spot on, whereas if you do hit a loose shot and you get it back into play and you can wedge it on to within, 5-10 feet and hole a par putt, like that is huge. And that really helps, I think, then build the mental resilience.
Welcome to the Halfway Hut, everyone. It's nice to have you back for another episode as we continue to kind of deep dive into our world of tour golf, the faces and the names behind players, coaches, media personalities that we've had on. Met today's guests a few weeks ago at Chart Hills. Was really amazed by the work she's doing, and looking back at her career, it's been a pretty interesting one. We're going to get into some of that, as well as a little bit about her views, what she does to kick back. Welcome to the podcast, Amy Bolden.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's really nice. We sort of met very briefly, didn't we, up at Chart Hills for the media day at the Legends Tour that's going to be going there in a few weeks' time. What did you think of that course?
I really liked it. I mean, I only really saw the last few holes, to be honest. I didn't actually full 18. I just filmed some stuff with some of the guys over the last few. But it looks great. It looks a really good test of golf. I've not played loads of golf down in that part of the country. But no, it looked great. It was in really good condition. I know they've spent a lot of money and, put a lot into the changes. So I think, especially the Legends Tour going there in the end of August, I think it'll be a really good test run.
We hope to get back down there. We were fortunate enough to be able to go out and play a few holes before you guys turned up, and it absolutely lashed it down. We had to call it after 8, looking like ground rats. But yeah, the course is looking pretty mint.
Yeah.
So I suppose we could kind of interchange with a few bits and pieces that you've done, but why don't we just talk about stuff that's fresh in mind? Legends Tour coverage, as well as a few other bits and pieces. How did that come about, and how's the experience being up close to golfers that have been there, seen it, got the T-shirt? Do you see a different attitude towards those on tour, sort of in the firing line, let's say, whether it's Ladies Tour, whether it's DP World Tour, and those that are still very competitive as senior golf, but they seem to have a bit of a different attitude? Have you found that?
Yeah, it's interesting because everyone asks me about, well, one, the standard of golf on the Legends Tour, but also their approach to the game. We do a lot of interviews with the players as well, asking them on their approach. How do they take it? Maybe not less seriously, but maybe a little bit more relaxed. And to be honest, I'd say it's still so competitive out there. Like, you obviously have the guys that are fresh, turning 50, that are just coming onto the tour. You've got the likes of Jamie Donaldson that's come out and, played really well as soon as he's been eligible to play on the Legends Tour, and he's still, he can still play so well. Like, he hits it a mile. And then you've obviously got the older guys that, maybe don't hit it as far as like the Scott Hens and people like that. And then maybe, enjoying their golf a little bit more. And it's so hard, isn't it? They've played golf their whole life. And, do you just retire and stop playing? I mean, it's, they'd probably be so bored. But it's all they've ever known. So it's, honestly, I think it's such a good opportunity. They're still getting to play loads of golf, still getting to travel all over the world. Like, they go to some, honestly, amazing, destinations. We've been to Barbados this year. They've been to Greece, Spain. So they go to some really good places. And they all just love golf, don't they? Like, to still be playing, in your 50s, 60s or whatever. You've played your whole career. You obviously love it. And I think it's so competitive. Like, the standard of golf, still so good. And they hit it miles. Honestly, like, Scott Hand hit it miles. So yeah, I just think it's really impressive.
Yeah, we had recently Trey, who you work with, and some of the events, Trey Niven was on, and he was saying, you can't believe the competitiveness of it all. Exactly what you've just said, they still hit it. Spoke to Simon Dyson, he came on a couple of weeks ago, who's looking forward to going on to the seniors tour. He can't wait. He talks to a few players that are on it now, and he said, I'll be ready for it. But he said that the attitude of everyone, they seem to be enjoying their golf, and the social aspect afterwards. It's not kind of right, straight to the range, straight to this, head down. They kind of learn all their life lessons, maybe And so it's kind of a good place to be around. So yeah, long may that continue. I mean, what else are you doing? I mean, I've obviously got some information here. I've had a look, and we've seen you different places. But give us a rundown on what your current kind of work year looks like between different roles.
Okay, so well, I stopped competing in, I think it was like May 2023, and um, I was always knew that I wanted to kind of do something still in golf, still in like being involved in the tournament, in like with the players. And anyway, an opportunity came up to do some on-course commentary with the Aramco Team Series at the time, is what it was called, at the women's events. So I was working alongside Rich Hoffman, Sophie Walker, and then also Kate Burton and Gabby Parkinson, one of my really good friends. And we were a really good team. And we basically, there'd be three people in the box, and then they'd have two of us out on the course, me and Sophie doing on course commentary. So that's kind of how it first started. And to be honest, like everyone's like, "Oh, how do you even get into that? How do you know what to do?" But it's just you, as a pro golfer going into that, you're just talking about what you see and what comes naturally to you. You know, you're following the best players in the world, going up to every shot. You're just getting a yardage, seeing, you know, I already know what clubs there and how far it goes. And then you're just having a feel for like the lie, the wind, how far the shot is. And you're just explaining that to the viewers. So I did that for 2023, and then I got the opportunity to have a phone call with the Legends Tour. And I just said, you know, I knew one of my really good friends, Richard Drummond, had worked on there for a long time alongside Kit. And they were looking for somebody to kind of, you know, Richard moved on to go to live. So they were looking, I think, for someone now to work alongside Kit for it. So yeah, I had a conversation with them, said it was really something I wanted to get into. And yeah, luckily they gave me that opportunity. So there's a few of us now, we kind of like rotate the role, you know, working with Trey. I think, I'm not sure if it's in the one at the PGA up in from Dean. So I'll be doing it alongside Trey. I know Boxy does it a little bit. So yeah, so it'll be I'm really enjoying it actually, to be honest. It's so different to playing. And then I also do little bits for the radio. So I'm doing final qualifying for the men's open. I'll be doing stuff at the women's open. So I kind of rotate between a few different roles, because the role on the Legends Tour is presenting mostly, like you're kind of doing the highlight show, piecing the program together.
Yeah.
And then with a couple of like featured pieces of like, you know, maybe a featured hole where you're explaining how, you know, how the players are going to get on with it. And then obviously on-course commentary talking, you know, on the golf course. And then radio is, everyone thinks that TV on-course commentary is the same as radio on-course commentary, but it's
Yeah.
totally different.
Yeah.
So to be honest, it's been really good to learn, you know, a load of different skills, because they're all different roles.
Yeah, completely. Did you find it a difficult situation to make that transition from sort of finally saying, okay, competitive golf at the highest level is no longer in my sort of daily life? Was there a sort of a gap between the two where you were kind of thinking, well, what do I do now? Were you happy to just see the back of it and move on to a fresh and interesting challenge?
Yeah, to be honest, it was really hard. I think, you know, I had a really successful amateur career, and then I turned pro, had a successful first couple of years. And then it kind of just settled down a little. It was just a bit like I was playing okay. I was making cuts. I was, you know, plodding along, kind of keeping my card. But, you know, the money back then was totally different anyway. But, you know, it got to, I think it was 2019, I was struggling with my golf, really struggling. I was, you know, probably having them conversations in my head of, "God, I keep doing this," because I was mentally struggling. You know, it's hard if you're not making money every week. You're spending all the money that you know, kind of have. You're going into your savings, because having to rely on sponsors, things like that. So yeah, it got to a point in 2019 where I was really struggling mentally as well. I mean, I say luckily, but obviously it wasn't like COVID happened. And I think that was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, just because
Right.
it forced me to just stop. So I stopped, and obviously we were in lockdown, and I just thought, right, I'm going to really just work on my golf, my swing, in the house. Couldn't see a ball flight, which was probably the best thing. I had a makeshift net in the back garden where I was just working on the swing. Couldn't see, like, because at the time I think I was hitting it left, like a low left, and I was working on the swing so much that, even if I was hitting, I couldn't see it. So I was just kind of grinding in the new movement that I needed to do with my swing. Anyway, we then came out of lockdown, were able to play, and I won my second event back. Um, and so it was a complete shift in how I was playing to then going out and winning. And then obviously then it's, expectations, everything like that changes massively. But after that win, that was in September 2020. And I don't really know, I can't really put my finger on what happened in 2021. But I was really struggling on the golf course. I was struggling off the golf course. I wasn't enjoying traveling. I wasn't enjoying being away from home and not playing well. And ended up losing my card, having to go back to Q school. And so it was all just like a really, tough couple of years. And I think when it got to 2023, I hadn't really been in contention again since the win. And I was like, what's going on? Like, I feel like I've played golf now for 11 years professionally, and I'm not putting myself in contention as much as I should. I'm not really making a proper living off this. And I was turning 30 and I was thinking, I just want to be able to have a steady income. And, I think as you get older, I was realizing that maybe LPGA Tour was a little bit of a stretch at this point. I didn't see myself playing on there as much because I was like, I didn't really want to move to America. And I just think when your confidence isn't very high, golf becomes very difficult, because golf, a lot of it, yeah, you've obviously got to be hitting the ball well, but so much of it is a mental game. And if you're not confident and, standing up there thinking that you can shoot, like, these girls are shooting 65, 66, 67, like week in, week out. And I just didn't really feel like I had that in me. So I think it was Germany that turned up to May 2023, and I was in a bad place. I think I played my first round. I think I played terribly, probably shot 80, and then teed it up on the next day. And I was just looking for every excuse to coming off the golf course. Yeah. So anyway, I ended up withdrawing. I went in to see the physio and I just broke down to her. Philippa, bless her, she was consoling me. And I just said, I just don't want to play golf anymore. And I was like, I think I've just really had enough. I need to have a complete break. And I don't think I realized at that point that I wouldn't be playing professional golf anymore. I didn't realize that was going to be the point that I'd never really play another Rally T event. Unfortunately, it was. I would have liked to have had maybe, turn up to an event knowing it's your last one and a bit of enjoying it and a bit of a farewell. But it just hasn't worked out that way. But to be honest, it's probably been the best thing that's happened, because I now have had that break, doing something else I enjoy. I look forward to going to play golf socially now, which, I really struggle to do over this. Yes.
Yeah. It's you said some really interesting things there. Actually, you could probably you make a whole podcast out dissecting aspects of that. Is there anything that you kind of look back on and go, do you know what? In hindsight, which is always, as we say, a wonderful thing, if I'd have known what I know now back then, perhaps things would have been different. Is there anything that you might have put your finger on? You sort of touched there a little bit on the mental side of things, because you had an amazing amateur career, quite frankly. Was the standard that different when it came to playing elite amateur golf and playing professional golf? Or was it the pressure that you put yourself under? Because I've always found that question very interesting when you see so many college players. Let's take the men's game, for example, and they flush it and they're hitting it a mile and then winning amateur events. And then that next step up, is it such a big gap, or is it what it does to your mind that tells you it's a bigger gap?
I mean, it's a good question. I think it is definitely the biggest part is the mental side, because when I look back to when I played top amateur golf and I would turn up to every event and I felt like I could win it. I felt like, if I didn't win it, I was disappointed. And it's just a totally different mindset that I had at that age. And I don't know what happened to them when I turned pro. The first couple of years were pretty good. I won Rookie of the Year in my first year as a pro, and I probably still had that mindset. But after the first couple of years, I don't know whether it's maybe probably more the confidence started to drop. I think when you turn pro, you maybe look at other people that are on tour and think, oh, well, they've got this coach. Maybe I should have that coach. Or, they've got a professional caddy. Maybe I should get a professional caddy. And you start changing a few things that you think are making you more professional or whatever it is you think is the right choices. Um, and I think when I look back, I already had a really good team around me. And even though it wasn't necessarily like, professional caddies or um, like maybe not coaches that were coaching tour pros or whatever. I had a really good coach. I had a great family behind me. Used to have my mum on the bike, and I mean, she never really gave me any advice, but I think it was more having the comfort of having my mum there, and we would just probably not really talk about the golf on the golf course. And it was, just kept things really simple. So I don't know, maybe making too many changes too soon, and then you get down a whole rabbit hole. And when I was changing coaches, when I changed I've had quite a few coaches that I've changed over the course of my career, but I think one time I then went in, I think I qualified for the Women's US Open at Pinehurst. And I used to hit, and it was always my shape, a little draw. And sometimes it would overdraw a little bit too much. I could never play a fade. It was just, it wasn't in my, I could hit it straight and I could hit a draw, just couldn't hit it left to right. And when I played US Open at Pinehurst, it's a golf course where you have to hit it left to right because the greens are so thin, you can't hold it. And they're like upside down saucepans, like they're rolling off if you're getting anything with any movement on. And I came off that tournament and I was like, went home and said to my coach, I have to be able to hit a fade because I can't play that golf course. Now, really, I should have just known, well, okay, well, that golf course is, it's a US Open golf course. How often do we play golf courses like that? But for
Yeah.
some reason, I then decided to change my whole game to try and hit a fade. And I think that ruined me for quite a long time. Um, Unfortunately. So if I could rewind the time, I would tell myself, do you know what? It's okay to just, you've got your shape. That's like, you've always hit it since you were 8 years old. That's always what you're going to be able to do. Um,
Yeah.
and then when I tried to hit a fade for so long, I then couldn't even hit a draw. And it was just like I had no idea which way the ball was going to go when I hit it. And I think that was the hardest thing. If you don't trust your golf swing, you don't trust the um, shape that you're going to hit off the tee box, it becomes so difficult because you then don't know where to aim. And yeah, so it went down a massive rabbit hole there.
It's I was mentioning to you before we hit record about Ben Evans, and he was part of the Faldo series. He played with Ollie Fisher back in the day. He played with Rory McIlroy, some other top amateurs that went on to have an unbelievable career. And he said when we interviewed him really early on in the days when we first started the podcast that he hit this unbelievably lovely fade. That was his shot. And then as soon as he turned pro, he felt he had to hit a draw. And he said he spent 20 years trying to do that. In the end, he now looks back going, it was a good fade. It was a good shot and it won me a lot of stuff. It got me to a +5. It got me in the Faldo series. It got me in the European champs, the England boys, blah, blah, blah. One shot or one tournament, I think he was. I think he got a double bogey at one tournament instead of a par that stopped him getting out of the Walker Cup, that kind of thing. And then when he turned pro, he just spent the next 10, 15 years trying to manipulate a draw. It's quite interesting
I
hearing
mean,
you say that.
yeah,
But hey, it is what it is.
crazy. I'm sure he's the same. If we could go back in time, you would tell yourself, no, just keep what you've got. Like it's good enough to win at the top
Yeah,
amateur level. And in my opinion, the top amateur level is, you come straight out on tour and especially these days, like the girls are ready to win at that level. You know, I've just come off the back of working on the women's amateur championship. And just how good these girls are straight out of college. They are ready to win. You look at the likes of, Lottie, um, Mimi, like there's so many girls that are ready to win.
absolutely. And they're young as well, like you say, raring
Yeah.
to go. We mentioned this a little bit earlier. How do you feel the women's game is right now compared to say where it was 5, 10 years ago?
Oh, the growth is unbelievable, to be honest. Like I look at, when I was playing full time, obviously 2023 was my last year, but I turned pro in end of 2013 to 2014 was my first year on tour. And we had, some years where we were struggling to get 10 events on the schedule. You can't make a living from 10 events. So like the amount of how many tournaments they now have the opportunity to play in, and the girls now can pick their schedules. They can go, all right, okay, well, I'm going to play 3 weeks in a row and I'll take 2 weeks off to rest. When I was playing, I had to play every event that was coming because, and sometimes it would be a real big stretch because they just had it all crammed into a few months. Whereas now the girls are getting to plan their schedule a lot better. The money they're playing for now is honestly, I mean, I really wish I was playing now because uh, the money's grown so much. You know, like they can
Yeah.
earn a real living, and it's just like the opportunity, especially the girls. I mean, the ladies European tour has grown massively
Yeah.
over the last few years, but also the major championships, some of the biggest prize funds they've had. Honestly, it's just millions and millions of pounds that they're getting to play for. So just got huge opportunities.
Yeah, and the crowds are swelling as well, aren't they? US Open was massive, really, really. I mean, it's like you say, it's growth on growth on growth, which can only be good. And of course, Justin Rose has got his Rose Ladies series, hasn't he? Which is a really nice stepping stone. It's a great tour in its own right, but it is a good stepping stone to bigger and better things. So there's obviously a lot of support around it. We were at the PIF Global last year at Centurion, probably going again this year, and that's great. And as you say, there's not just one or two outstanding players. There's a whole array of players that are competing and pushing. So you're kind of like pushing each other on, as opposed to maybe a few years ago when you had one or two players that were kind of going to turn up and win. And they're great. But now the competition seems so much better, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. It's kind of all got a bit more bunched rather than just having, them stand out one or two players that, they turn up to every event and you think, well, if I beat them, then you're going to win. Whereas now it's like, well, actually, there's so many girls that are in contention. So yeah,
Yeah,
it just makes it a
completely.
lot more of an interesting one as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So what advice would you give to any young golfer, female, male, it doesn't matter, but I suppose your experiences are tailored towards young girls getting into the game? What would your advice be to them, or even any parent that's actually got a junior golfer that that's really keen on pushing on, kicking on?
I think first of all, just try and play in as many competitions as you can. Get out on the golf course, get loads of course time because, you don't want to be stuck on the range. If you want to work on golf, pitching, chipping, putting. They're the three things that you should be concentrating the most on. If you're, because that's when you're going to really build like the mental resilience side of things as well, because you're going to have days where you're not going to hit it well. There's never going to be, even the tournaments that you win, you're not going to hit every shot perfect. So, if you can get your short game and putting really, really spot on, whereas if you do hit a loose shot and you get it back into play and you can wedge it on to within, 5-10 feet and hole a par putt, like that is huge. And that really helps, I think, then build the mental resilience. I think entering loads of golf tournaments because I think you need to get practice in that kind of environment. Get it ready for when, if that's what you want to do and you want to go and turn professional. Have as much experience as you can, winning, losing, whatever it is. Because that's what I did from such a young age. My dad, well, my mum and dad put to enter me in so many different tournaments from the age of, you know, 7. Like
Yeah,
I remember I used to play in a competition called the Wee Wonders. It was obviously just a little
yeah,
kids
yeah.
competition, but it really got the competitive side fired like up in me. And I think that's what's now carried on into, the rest of my life and even now post golf. I think it's a real good attribute to have is to be competitive in anything you do.
And how about if things aren't going to plan? You're putting all the effort in, or you think you're putting all the effort in, and you've had a string of bad weeks or even months. What's your sort of advice on that side of things?
I think one thing we all have to remember is, golf is a game and it is supposed to be
Yeah,
fun. And I
yeah,
think that's, something we can all forget really easy, especially when it becomes a living. If this is advice for someone that is, within the ages of 10 to 15, enjoy it. Like, don't put so much pressure on yourself. And that's something I'd say to the parents as well as, I see it sometimes with pushy parents. And I was really lucky to have parents that were very supportive. But my dad was a professional at my golf club. He was the head pro at my at my club. So, I probably felt a little bit of pressure from my dad just because, he was a good golfer and I knew that, that's really what he wanted me to do. So you sometimes feel the pressure from parents, even when they're not putting it on you. But the last thing you want is to add that because, your kids are already probably feeling it. They're already feeling the expectation and the pressure. So just try and make it fun for them. Try and make it. I remember when I used to go out on the chipping area or out for a few holes with my dad after school when I was a kid, and we'd just make it fun. Like we'd always play a little match against me, and it'd always be like, "Oh well, if you win today, I'll give you a fiver, or I'll give like you can go to the shop and get something after dinner, or whatever it was." There was like fun incentives rather than it being like, and if I lost, I lost. Like it wasn't a big deal, but it was more
Mhm.
just trying to make things fun. And I think that's something that I think you've got to remember is golf is supposed to be fun. It's a game. And it's there to be enjoyed and it will get a lot more serious as you get older and if you
Yeah.
turn professional. So make the most.
Is there anyone that you've been up close and personal with in golf, um, that's not taught you some lessons, but actually wowed you in terms of their approach to their practice, approach to their mental game, their performance, just their general stature in and around golf that you thought, wow. And it could be, the like women's game, the men's game, the junior game, etc., the amateur game, the professional game.
I think there's a couple of people, to be honest, and this is from the women's side for me, just because I'm around these girls. But I mean, Charlie Hull is just incredible. Like the way she approaches golf with her attitude is honestly, I don't know anyone else like it. Like she plays so freely. She absolutely loves being out there. And I think that is, I don't see that very often I know that, it's your living, but you can see a lot of the girls, maybe they're very good at it. Do they love it? I don't know, but they're very good at it. And Charlie absolutely loves golf. And, if she's not playing in a tournament, she's back home at Northampton Golf Club playing with her lad mates. Like she just loves
Yeah.
it. So I think I find that really refreshing of, she's not like I remember when I used to be like weeks and weeks on end playing, I'd play like 4 weeks in a row and I'd come home and I'd be like, right, golf clubs are going away for a week. Like she's the total opposite. She's like, oh no, I want to like, now I want to go and play with mates and then go to the pub with them after. Like it's just really refreshing to kind of see that attitude towards how much she loves it. And someone else, I'd say a good friend of mine, Olivia, um, the way she approaches golf is just I've never known anyone like it. She is just so laid back. Um, I really wish I could have taken a leaf out of her book because like I remember she'd see me at tournaments being stressed out and she'd always like, take the mickey out of me because I'd have like a tripod on the range, filming my swing before and after a round because I was like, oh, it's not in this position. She's like, what are we doing? Like, just go and play. Like, just go and play freely. And I'm like, it's a lot easier. It is a lot easier said than done. And it's interesting to see how different people's minds work. But she had so much confidence and belief in her game. And if she didn't play very well, she'd just be like, "Oh yeah, I just had a bad week. Like the putter wasn't very good, or I just was hitting it a bit left today." Whereas like, if I was hitting it a bit left, I'm like, "Why am I hitting like what's the?" And I need to completely do a swing change.
Yeah.
Like it was never the dramatic with her.
Yeah, there's so many lessons in life golf will teach you, isn't it? And sometimes you just got to open your eyes and look around, and there's some people that are doing a very good job of it, even if they're not. And I'm not using those two as an example, but just people out there, even if they perhaps haven't got the most technically sound swing or even maybe the ball flight, but they find a way. And oftentimes it's through their attitude, isn't it? An approach to life, let alone golf. So yeah, okay, there's two there. Awesome. So you're obviously still loving golf. You're still loving being in and around the environment, but I also know that you take your fitness very, very seriously. Well, not seriously. You enjoy your fitness. Tell us a bit about that. What sort of helps you to kick back when golf is not on the agenda for the day?
Yeah, so I've always been someone that's enjoyed, keeping fit. You always have to, stay on top of your fit when you were playing golf anyway. But when I stopped playing, I think I became not bored, but I didn't really have anything competitive to like focus my mind on. You know, I'd stopped playing golf. I wasn't even wanting to, go to the golf course because I was struggling mentally. So I'd moved to Dubai at this point, and I ended up joining a gym. And it was very much like a community-based gym. Like, you'd spend a lot of time with people in the gym, outside of the gym as well, especially in Dubai. Your friends become more like family out there. And I was doing these classes, and I just fell in love with the classes, and they were all Hyrox based. Um, and for those of you who don't know what Hyrox is, it's basically like a functional fitness competition where you would do 8 kilometers of running. After
Yeah.
every 1 kilometer, you do like a functional fitness station. So whether it would be 1,000 meters on the ski erg, 1,000 meters on the row, wall balls, lunges, burpees. So anyway, they are movements that anyone can do. It's not a movement that is really technical. Like anybody can do these movements, which I think is the reason why Hyrox has become so popular. So anyway, I'd already done a couple of competitions before moving to Dubai, just with my sisters. My older sister, she's very much into it. And my other sister was wanting to get into it a little bit. So we decided to enter one together. Anyway, when I went to Dubai, I think I just maybe took it a little bit more seriously, started training for it a little bit more. And yeah, ended up just getting addicted. It is quite addictive. But anyway, so me and my boyfriend, we entered one together, had a really good time. Anyway, basically the top, so I think it's the top two maybe qualifying in each age group from each competition to go to the World Championships at the end of the season. So we qualified in our mixed age category in the World Championships, which I've just come back from a couple of weeks ago, which was in Stockholm, which here in Sweden. So it's a real, it's a big achievement when you can get that. To be honest, like I think they say it's the top 0.5% that make it to the World Championships, or I don't know, something ridiculous like that. But anyway, so we competed in that a couple of weeks ago, and do you know what? It was obviously you turn up there, and there's like, let's say there's 1,000 people that are competing across all age groups. We know going there, we're never gonna get on the podium. Like these are the elite, like real elite athletes. It's their full-time jobs that are making it to the World Championships. But just to be around, you know, like-minded people, obviously from when I was in my sport to now seeing a different sport, I've got so much I look at them and I appreciation for how hard they work and what they do, because it's a really difficult sport and you've got to be a very strong runner. And Hyrox now, if you look at the elite 15s, like the professionals in the sport, they're all like ex, Olympic athletes. They're ex runners, they're ex like CrossFit
Yeah.
athletes, ex swimmers, cyclists. So it's a real it's quite interesting to see the crossover between sports. I'm not sure how good the crossover is between golf and Hyrox. Like I say, I'm not in the top. I am very average. I have a very good partner that carries me through it, to be honest. But it's just been really nice to concentrate on something outside of golf and to kind of have a little bit of the competitiveness. And what's really good about Hyrox is that, when you set off in a race, there's like waves every 10 minutes. So you can't see basically how you're doing in the race, whether you're first or last. It's just going off a time, and you're just trying to beat the last time you did. So yeah, it's a really good sport for anyone that hasn't tried it. Honestly, I would, I can't say how good it is to get into, to be honest.
So, what's next? Have you got any additional plans, or is it just more of the same?
More of the same, to be honest. Like everyone says, "Oh, what are your goals?" Like, because as a golfer, I was always very much goal driven. Like, you'd write your goals down for what you wanted for the end of the year, for next year or whatever. It's really hard when you're kind of new to the industry. Like, doing what I'm doing now. I've only really been doing it for a couple of years full time. And a lot of it is just about opportunities. Like if you get an opportunity, you've got to grab it, you've got to go for it, throw yourself right in, because, things aren't just going to fall into your lap either in this job. Like you have to kind of go after it. Like the goal really, I would love to do a little bit more on the men's tour. Um, I would love to do more on the women's tour than I am already doing. So it's kind of just kind of doing what I'm doing at the moment, but trying to add a little bit more in. I love doing the on-course commentary. I think that's really, or just like the commentary in general. I really love that side of things. I think because of being a fast player, it maybe comes a little bit more natural. And I adore doing it on the women's tour just because I think it's nice. I already have a lot of the relationships with the girls. So, when you're going up to them before the final round and you're watching them in the warm up, and you just get maybe a little bit of out of them than they would maybe give to someone that they didn't know, or that someone was coming in to do the on-course commentary that they didn't really know that well. Because I've grown up with a lot of the girls, especially on the LET, um, they'll just come up and have a chat. And I think sometimes you can just get a little bit more out of them because maybe they're a bit more comfortable around you. Um, so I definitely really want to do more on the women's tour for sure, but I would like to break into doing some TV stuff on the men's tour outside of Legends Tour. So we'll see. But I think a lot of it, you've just got to keep getting experience, keep building on the experience, because, at the end of the day, they're not going to hire someone that's not got the experience. They need, someone ready to go. So at the moment, just trying to get all the experience I can.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Getting experience, getting better at what you do, and doors will open. You can't expect them to open. Sometimes you have to push them a little bit, don't you? But clearly you're enjoying what you're doing, and you're getting more and more experience. The Legends stuff it seems like a great little family as well. From those that we met over at Chart Hills a few weeks ago, will you be back down there for that particular event?
I'm actually not doing that event. I've actually got a really busy few weeks coming up. So I am doing Ireland, which is next week. And then I'm doing the one up in Scotland, the PGA Championship, up at Trump, Aberdeen. So I'm actually not going to be doing Chart Hills. I might still come down for a couple of days and do some work with some of the people that like around the event. But it will be a really good event. I'm hoping the weather stays good. Maybe not as hot as it has been because it's been brutally hot, but
It's almost impossible.
I know.
Those 2
It's funny.
days.
We complain so much, don't we, about the weather? But honestly, it's
It makes you think about getting air conditioning put in. However, it's a big task for
does.
like 2 days a year.
I know. Is it worth it for just a couple of the year we get?
Yeah. Honestly, the windows were open. It wasn't a through drive, but whatever was coming through, it was like warm air. Honestly, like you said, we're a bit pathetic, aren't we, when it comes to the heat in this country?
Yes.
So, are you sort of Dubai based, or have you kind of left there whilst situations have been going on, or is it where's home for you?
So I've actually moved back to the UK. I moved back a couple of months ago now. To be honest, obviously everything that's going on in that part of the world, it was just coincidence that I ended up flying back when that was all happening. And I'd always decided that I wanted to. I'd done my stint in Dubai. I loved it. But I was just ready to come home. And especially in the job I'm doing now, you get a lot of like 1 or 2 day jobs in the UK, and it just didn't make sense. And I think for career wise as well, I will have more opportunities being based in the UK. So that was probably the main decision. So North Wales is home. I'm currently living in Manchester, looking at maybe going back to North Wales. We'll see. I think it's funny because I grew up in a little small town, and all you wanted to do growing up is kind of get into a city and go into the big wide world. And now all I want to do is probably go back to the small town in Wales. So we'll see.
Yeah, it seems to be the Midlands and kind of branching off from there, Manchester, etc., a bit further north is a good place to be as a base. So yeah, I can understand why you're there. But Wales is beautiful. But
as you say, there's a lot coming up as well. This part of the world over the next few weeks, we've got both Open Championships, not too far away, Birkdale for the men and Royal Lytham for the women. And that was something I was going to actually say when you were asking me that question of the advice I'd give to someone young, like growing up, wanting to maybe do this as a sport. One thing I remember so clearly, and I think something that got me quite hooked on the game, was my dad, whenever the Open was at Birkdale or the Women's Open around that part of the world near us, he'd go and take me. And it doesn't have to be the Open. It just needs to be like, you know, a golf tournament. Go and take your kids to watch golf live, because like how inspiring it is to go and watch that. And I remember so clearly of going to watch, it was called the Weetabix at the time, the Women's Open. And I remember getting balls thrown to me all the time from players. I remember Laura Davis gave me her visor after she finished the round, signed it. And there's things that you just don't forget. And I was probably only, 6 years old. But I'm really excited because my nephew, who is 7, he's quite into his golf, is going to come to the Open in a couple of weeks' time at Birkdale. And he's coming on a practice day, and they're the best days to come, because that's when, you get the ball thrown to the other side.
Yeah.
So it's really looking forward to that for him.
Do you know what? That's an amazing piece of advice to finish on. I've heard that before, but I haven't heard it for a while. Get in and around the game that you love so much, and ultimately at the level that you want to reach out, potentially one day to be in, and have that interaction with the players. It provides memories, as you've just said, but we'll probably never forget.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, listen, Amy, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. We sort of only just met very briefly, and you were so gracious to agree to come on and have a chat with us. Hopefully we'll get a chance to speak again at some point, and no doubt our paths will cross at one event at some point in the future. So thanks again.
No problem. Thank you for having me.